Sonny Gray was locked in for the St. Louis Cardinals on Saturday, getting a win over the Rangers to set up the rubber game against Jacob deGrom on Sunday. We'll talk about it coming up on b-schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is now late in the evening on Saturday, May 31st, 2025. By the time you're listening to this, it is now the month of June, and the Cardinals have navigated the month of May with a 19-8 record, putting themselves squarely in position in the National League wildcard race as well as the NL Central. Although the Cubs are eventually going to have to play some real teams, that might help the Cardinals' case down the line. Saw in the Cubs game today, Elly De La Cruz basically took a routine 6-3 and decided to take his sweet time with it, allowing the Cubs to score an additional run, and they end up beating the Reds 2-0. That's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about the Cardinals and their big win over the Rangers, 2-0 on Saturday. Sonny Gray, more like Sonny Great. Am I right? He was fantastic for the second time in his past 3 starts, striking out 10 batters. And it was a goose egg on the scoreboard for the Rangers in this one. Cardinals win it 2-0. Got the better of Patrick Corbin, who, by the way, Patrick Corbin has had a pretty good season so far with the Rangers. After today's outing, in which he gave up a couple of runs, has a 3.71 ERA. I mean, he toiled away for a long, long time, unsuccessfully, during that big-time contract he signed with the Washington Nationals. He was dreadful for a pretty good long while. Credit to Texas, man, what they're doing with Corbin and what they've done with a number of pitchers in recent years. Shout out to Mad Dog. Mike Maddox is still their pitching coach, who, of course, was with the Cardinals there for a number of years and has done a nice job with the Rangers. There's no doubt about that. And I think Patrick Corbin is maybe another guy that it's probably not all Mike Maddox's credit, but Mad Dog deserves some credit for his revelation as 3.7 ERA after literally like 4 or 5 years in a row where he was well above a 5 ERA. That I didn't think we would ever see a Patrick Corbin revival. But he was tough on the Cardinals today. But the Cardinals scratched across a couple of runs. They score a run on a sac fly in the second. Willson Contreras with an RBI ground rule double in the fourth. And that was all they got. That was all they'd need, as Sonny was 7 strong shutout innings, 4 hits allowed, 1 walk allowed, 10 strikeouts. He's now down to a 3.65 ERA for the season. So we'll talk a little bit more about Gray and the job the bullpen did as the Cardinals have an opportunity on Sunday. It's going to be a pretty quick turnaround, a noon game on Roku, which is something. But that'll be the opportunity for the Cardinals to try to win another series. Remember, they've only lost 1 series since April 23rd, I believe, was the finale date of that Atlanta Braves series that they lost. So the only one since then has been the Tigers. We'll see if the Cardinals and Eric Fedde can beat Jacob deGrom on Sunday to continue that trend. But want to let everybody know to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy daily St. Louis Cardinals content. That is what b-schaeff Daily is, talking the Cardinals and everything to do with the team every day throughout the season and in the offseason as well. We post a ton of content, and today we'll also get a chance to go down on the farm and take a look at what the Springfield Cardinals did to one of the stud starting pitchers of the Kansas City Royals, who was down there in Double-A on a rehab assignment, and the Springfield Cardinals really took it to him. So we'll talk about that and down on the farm coming up. But back into Sonny Gray. I know it's been a little bit of an up and down roller coaster type of season for him, because we've seen games where, man, he just doesn't have it and he gets beat up pretty good. But, man, when he locks it in, he is just about as good as anybody you're going to find in Major League Baseball. And that's the version that the Cardinals got from Sonny Gray on Saturday. That game in Philadelphia, that's the kind of clunker that we're thinking about more recently, where he gave up 7 runs. There was the game against the Mets as well, when he didn't pitch particularly well at the beginning of the month of May. And it's kind of been strange to see Sonny Gray oscillating between really, really good starts, right? He had the game against Pittsburgh after that Mets start where he struck out 8 and 7 scoreless innings. Granted, that's always a factor when you're playing the Pirates. But he did it again against the Detroit Tigers just a couple of games ago. 6 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts. That was the game immediately following his clunker against Philadelphia. Last time out, prior to the game on Saturday, he pitched okay, had a quality start against Arizona, but I think still that game was not particularly strong by his standards, and the Cardinals needed some late magic to solidify that win, and it was a surefire team effort in that one. Flash forward to on Saturday, and it was a team effort again, but really Sonny Gray was leading the charge with his 7 innings. The Cardinal offense didn't do a ton in this game, but when you have your ace on the mound performing like an ace, and that is still, in my opinion, what you get from Sonny Gray. Matthew Liberatore had a better ERA prior to this weekend. Obviously, his game against the Rangers on Saturday did not go to his liking, and to me, that's one of those games that you just have to kind of flush it if you're Libby, and his number's still a little better than Sonny's on the season. Libby has a 3.08 ERA even after that performance on Friday night. Sonny Gray, 3.65, I believe, is the number for him on the season, but Sonny is an ace guy, and I mean, when we think about this Cardinals team, the idea that they are in the mix for a wild card or we'll call it and or the division race, because right now they are 3 games back of the Cubs. But when it comes to the wild card chase, the Mets and Phillies are actually tied right now atop the NL East. The Mets have gone on a little bit of a run lately to make that happen, and the Cardinals are still 3 games as well behind both of those teams. But you look out to the NL West, the Cardinals are basically percentage points behind the Padres, a virtual tie for that wild card seat, and both teams ahead of the Giants. So, like, as of this moment, it would be the Padres, the Cardinals, and then whoever loses out of that NL East race, which is currently tied with a 621 winning percentage. Like, those would be your 3 wild cards. So the Cardinals are very much in the race, and when you start to think about what it would look like to have a 3-game best-of-3 playoff series, it feels pretty good to think that you could go Sonny Gray, Matthew Liberatore. I know Libby's not coming off of his best outing of the season, but that is a good 1-2 punch. And to me, that is what the 1-2 punch would be as of this moment. A long way to go, but it is at least something to think about that I think the Cardinals would be at a pretty good advantage, especially if you're getting this version of Sonny Gray. When he pounds the strike zone like he did on Saturday, he's pitching with such confidence. There was only, I believe, one time in the game that the Rangers got a runner into scoring position against him, and it was a first and third spot where he ended up getting a fly out to end the threat. I mean, he was just fantastic. It's those types of games for Sonny Gray where it's not even hardly watching the guy break a sweat. 91 pitches in 7 innings, 64 strikes. That is a really, really high strike percentage, around 70%. In some ways, you can have games like that where I feel like that's too many strikes. And we've seen moments like that where Sonny Gray is so intent upon pounding the zone that you wonder if he potentially costs himself in terms of leaving hitters guessing a little bit. But anytime he is able to get ahead in the count as often as he was able to do on Saturday, they're in your world now. There's nothing that they can really do because they can't sit on just one pitch. They can maybe sit on location, and I think that's what happens sometimes to Sonny. And by location, I simply mean in the zone. He tries so hard to be in the zone and doesn't want to waste pitches. He wants to be efficient. But for a guy to throw that many strikes, about 70% as the strike rate on Saturday, and strike out 10, maybe it runs a little bit counterintuitive to say, well, yeah, of course, if he's striking out a bunch of guys, he's got to throw a bunch of strikes. But to not be hardly out of the zone, or when you are out of the zone, it is usually with a purpose to set something up or, whatever the case might be. Incredibly efficient for him to get through 7 innings on 91 pitches while striking out 10. I feel like we've said it a couple of times this year, but that's as good as we have seen Sonny Gray. The outing against the Tigers, I would say, maybe fell into that category, but he was even more efficient in this one today, and it was in a spot where the Cardinals really needed it. It's not as though they had a long losing skid, because they've been pretty much, like we said off the top, winning every series recently other than that Tigers series for a good long while now. But anytime you lose a game 1 of a series, you don't want to compound that by losing the next one, and suddenly you've given up the series, and then you're potentially at the mercy of a sweep in game 3. You need the stopper to go out there and be what Sonny Gray was, and especially during a little bit of a downturn for the lineup now. Rangers, they have had some struggles offensively this year for sure. I think playing below the expectations based on the names in that lineup, but certainly the pitching has been something that's kept them kind of in range, and Corbin is an example of that. We'll see DeGrom on Sunday as another surefire example of that. But it has coincided with the Cardinals the last couple of days, just not doing much offensively. You score 1 run on Friday, just 2 on Saturday, and it was just 5 hits in this game as well. They're still doing a decent job of working counts throughout the lineup, walking 4 times. So at least you get more base runners than just the 5 that they secured via hit. But It was lean, again, offensively, and it's kind of been a bit of a lean period as well for the lineup. Not a ton of standout efforts from the lineup today. 2 for 4 day from Mason Wynn. It was 1 for 3 from Contreras. We talked about the ground rule RBI double that extended the Cardinals' lead. Also reached base via walk. So Contreras was on twice, Mason Wynn on twice. The only other guy in the lineup to get on base 2 times was Pedro Pages, who went 1 for 3 and also reached base via walk. And I believe his hit was an infield hit as well. So it's not like the Cardinals were ripping the cover off the ball, but you get the pitching performance that you need. The stopper comes out and does his job, and we will call it a stopper scenario, even though the Cardinals were not on a losing streak. You want to continue the good vibes and limit the bad ones as quickly as you possibly can. And frankly, we maybe should give a little bit of credit to Alec Burleson for being the stopper, because once he came into that game on Friday night, didn't give up any runs. Nobody the next day did either. 7 strong from Sonny. Phil Maton was good in this game, and Ryan Helsley, he looked pretty sharp in the 9th inning. I thought the Rangers batters helped Helsley out a little bit. The pitch that Corey Seager struck out on was a slider that I don't know really. I think he was just a little jumpy in the box because that was well below the zone in the dirt. But that's what Ryan Helsley can do when you have 102 in your back pocket and people respect and understand that the breaking ball is something you have to contend with as well. Maybe hitters can sometimes be a little bit jumpy in the box. Credit to the Cardinal pitching staff. 12 total strikeouts in the game. Helsley had the 2. Sonny Gray had the 10. And now the Cardinals are in a really good position going into Sunday. And you can credit even like what happened Friday night. Matthew Liberatore didn't have his best stuff, but he was able to get through 5 innings to sort of limit a little bit the damage to the bullpen. And you had Gordon Graceffo. That's probably some other topic of note that we should talk about would be the roster moves that the Cardinals made before the game on Saturday. Gordon Graceffo had to kind of eat it a little bit on Friday night and didn't have his best stuff. It was a mop-up role. The game was a dud. We didn't end up recording a podcast as a result. I did the post-game show for Sports Hub STL, and there were under 100 people that watched it. So at a certain point, I said, all right, we're prioritizing our sleep schedule tonight, and I knew nobody cared. So didn't record a podcast, but my overall thoughts on Libby is, it is what it is. We'll see him 5 days later. It was funny hearing Ricky and Claves talk on the radio broadcast Saturday, saying basically Libby was already kind of saying, I wish I could pitch today. Like, I'm itching to get back out there and put that previous outing behind me, because he really hasn't had any bad ones to that extent on the season until the one that Libby had on Friday night. I think the only other outing where he didn't pitch that great was because, he only threw like 3 innings and then it was shortened due to rain. He had given up a home run before the rain delay, and then the delay happened and he couldn't come back out there. So that was definitely Friday, Libby's worst outing of the season, but there have been a lot of other good ones in between that you can feel good about, and I'm sure the next one for Libby, he will come out there with a mission and with a purpose to put Friday night behind him. But you got Graceffo in there on Friday. Burleson ends up eating up the last inning, allowing Oliver Marmol to somewhat mitigate the damage against his bullpen. And then you get 7 from Sonny on Saturday. You go to Maton, you go to Helsley. That's perfectly normal when you're in a 2-0 game. Basically, they're going to be able to empty the clip on Sunday because you have the off day coming on Monday before the Cardinals return back home for a very compelling 3-team, 9-game homestand. Royals, Dodgers, and Blue Jays coming to town at Busch Stadium when the schedule really starts to ramp up. And so just to make sure before Saturday's game that the Cardinals had enough coverage, they did swap out Gordon Graceffo for Roddery Munoz. And Munoz, he may not even end up pitching on Sunday. If the Cardinals are in a close game, I would imagine a lot of other names would be ahead on the pecking order before we would get to Roddery Munoz. But Oli Marmol's going to be at an advantageous position, I think, with Eric Fetty and potentially looking to get maybe 5, maybe 6 innings out of him, depending on the game circumstances Sunday. And certainly I would like to see, and I think Oli would like to see, the potential to be aggressive when that Jacob deGrom, is on the other side. And so it'll be very interesting gamesmanship-wise and how the Cardinals want to approach it and just trying to take as many good ABs against Jacob deGrom as they possibly can. This is a guy that his stuff and his kind of aura and reputation is legendary, but we also know that keeping healthy has been a challenge for him, and kind of the story of deGrom's career has just been hard luck, where not only from the injury standpoint, but when he's out there healthy and pitching to usually an ERA in the low 2s, he's never racking up as many wins as he arguably should because he doesn't often get the run support. So if they can get even 5 innings from Fedde on Sunday and then just get into the bullpen. The Cardinals have those relievers available, you'd have to think, and can throw the kitchen sink at the Rangers, who's been an offense, obviously, that has not quite performed to expectation this year. So it's going to be definitely very interesting to see the way that all of that plays out on Sunday. Another note that we should probably address is the transaction that was made with regard to the injured list. Jordan Walker has wrist inflammation, and he is on the shelf now for 10 days. Probably one of those deals that'll be closer to the minimum stay for him, but we'll be very interested to see what his return timeline looks like as that materializes. But it also could mean an opportunity now. We've talked about it. Only one injury away from potentially seeing some sustained Nolan Gorman time. Ironically enough, that did not come on Saturday despite the injury. Really what it could mean is more Alec Burleson time, as Oliver Marmol took the opportunity to get Burley back into a game as the right fielder on Saturday. He went 1 for 4 with a strikeout. So we'll see how often the Cardinals are comfortable putting him out there in right field. I think you do lose a little bit defensively compared to Walker, but the hope is that the bat makes up for it with Burleson maybe getting some opportunity. And if it's not him, it's going to be Donovan moving to left. You see Newt go to right, and then pretty much you'd have to figure Nolan Gorman into the lineup. And the roster move that was made for Walker was not one that would preclude Gorman from getting regular opportunities. I'd been saying, look, if there's an injury, it's going to be Gorman time. And if there's an injury that makes it not be Gorman time, and look, that could have been to an infielder, could have been to an outfielder like Walker. It doesn't matter as long as it's not the center fielder or the catcher. Maybe at the corners. Well, no, even third base would be Gorman time. Maybe first base wouldn't as much because that fits a lot better to Burleson. So most positions on the squad, shortstop is probably a different story too. But the majority of positions, if there were an injury, corner, outfield, second, third, at least those spots, anybody with a DH pulse, those would mean opportunities now for Nolan Gorman, unless they called up Thomas Saggese. If they did that, then I would have said Gorman's cooked. Like, the Cardinals are not ever really intending to get him into a game. They don't care to. Now, that didn't happen, so we haven't maybe gotten to that point of the DEFCON 1 on the status for Gorman. But it was Ryan Vilade that gets the call up, and he's got about an 850 OPS this year with Memphis, mostly an outfielder and a right-handed hitter, so fits more the archetype with where Jordan Walker was filling into this roster rather than like a Michael Ciani, who has put up some pretty good numbers in AAA recently offensively, but just is left-handed hitter. Walker's a right-handed hitter. You've already got quite a few left-handed hitting outfielders with Vic and Newt in there on a daily basis. Burleson, obviously another guy that fits into that mix from time to time. He's also a lefty, so that's the explanation. It's not Matt Koperniak, because if you look at Matt Koperniak's numbers, he doesn't really have numbers this season that would indicate he should have been the call. He just hasn't been playing very well, and Vilade has. 26-year-old that I believe came over to the Cardinal organization in the offseason. Can't remember the exact moment, but he was there and present and accounted for in spring training, to be sure. Saw quite a bit of him during the Grapefruit League, and he'll fill into this roster. I don't think he's a priority necessarily to get into the lineup, but we'll see what it ends up looking like for him. Should mean some chances for Gorman, at least a little bit more than what he was getting. And look, I think at the end of the day, that still is something that needs to be earned. So if Gorman is performing in the limited opportunities he gets, he'll get more of them. Otherwise, I think the Cardinals have sort of gotten past the notion of runway for runway's sake. But this will be a good challenge to that theory because there just hasn't been spots for him. Like, even if they wanted to get Gorman into games recently, there had been good reasons with guys like Burleson and Walker having more of a claim to those opportunities. If they start shoving Barrero and Ryan Vilade into games before Gorman, then we've probably got bigger issues at play. But that's the way I'm looking for that to unfold, and we'll see what it looks like on Sunday with the lineup against Jacob deGrom, Eric Fedde going for the Cardinals. Let's go ahead, though, and I alluded to it a little bit earlier in the show. We'll go down on the farm and talk about what happened in Springfield and a big night offensively in Memphis for the Redbirds as well as we go down on the farm. It's time to go down on the farm. Brought to you by Hastings Layers Premium Eggs.
You'll be happier than a jackass eating thistle.
Huh? So to correct myself, they weren't in Memphis, but the Memphis Redbirds were at Memphis. They're playing in Durham against the Bulls, and they're getting a win on Saturday. 9-8 winners with the Redbirds to improve to 31-23. Bulls are 31-25, so a slightly better record there for Memphis. It was a 9-8 game, kind of exciting in the latter innings as the Redbirds had staked out a pretty good lead in this game. It was 7-2. Durham scores 3 in the 8th. The Redbirds get 2 in the 9th, which they ended up needing because Durham came back to score 3 more in the bottom of the 9th. 6 runs over the final 2 innings, but the Redbirds survive it 9-8. Ciani, Fermin, Prieto all had multi-hit days at the top of the order, and the big day was for Cesar Prieto, who hit 2 home runs. He's up to now 5 on the year. Drove in 5 and reached base as well a third time via walk, scored 3 runs. Thomas Ajacey, 4 for 5. A couple of runs scored and a couple of RBIs as well. A nice day for the infielder who's got a 758 OPS now on the season. So that was kind of the group that was pacing the day for the Memphis Redbirds in a 9-8 win. Quinn Matthews returned to Memphis. Remember, he had been on rehab, making a couple of starts at the lower levels, and got hit around a little bit. A shorter outing, not too surprised to see he only throws 55 pitches in this game. 2 2/3, 2 hits, 2 runs. The 3 walks is certainly what you are going to want to get rid of and avoid from your game moving forward if you're Quinn Matthews, but did strike out 3. Nothing to be concerned about there, in my opinion. As long as the reports are that he came away healthy, that's really all that matters. Andre Granillo was a standout out of the bullpen, 2 scoreless innings and racked up 3 strikeouts. Didn't allow a walk, didn't allow a hit. 1.35, the Granillo ERA in AAA. Yeah, I think that he should be somebody that gets a 40-man roster spot and an opportunity sooner rather than later. Roy Croft got hit around, gave up 3 runs in an inning of work. Riley O'Brien, though, did get credited with the save as he comes in to rescue Roy Croft there in the 9th inning, it would appear. So that's good to see from Riley. But, man, Granillo, his numbers are really, really good. And just good to see Quinn Matthews back in action for AAA. Let's talk, though, about the AA game because I had alluded to it a little bit earlier, and some pretty impressive stuff going on there in, not in Springfield. Well, yeah, this was in Springfield, actually. It was a 10-8 loss for the Springfield Cardinals against the Northwest Arkansas Naturals of the Kansas City Royals organization. But that's not really the biggest takeaway. The fact that they lost the game is not as concerning. What's impressive is it was Cole Ragans taking the mound for Northwest Arkansas. He's on a rehab assignment trying to make his way back to Kansas City. And, man, he's one of the most dynamic arms in baseball. Not great numbers on the season, but passable numbers, and was dealing with an injury. 3 2/3, 7 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned, a walk, and a home run allowed. The final line on Ragans. He did strike out 6 batters for the Springfield Cardinals, but shortstop Jeremy Rivas tagged him for a home run. 2 for 5 with that homer in the game. Rivas is a young and exciting shortstop. Defensively, I think he's a very advanced player, and we saw some of him in Grapefruit League and looks very comfortable. But good to see him matching up against the major league pitcher. I mean, Cole Ragans is a legit big league starter, and Rivas took him deep. 2 for 5 in the game. Great to see. Nathan Church was 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs, also reached base via walk. 1 for 5 for Chase Davis. Joshua Baez still continuing, as we talked about the other day in the podcast about his promotion. 3 for 5 day and a run scored for Baez. So he is continuing to look good. Had his second double already at the AAA level. Early returns on him, very, very strong. Did have 1 strikeout in the game. We know strikeouts are something to kind of monitor with him. But I'm ready to say I feel like Baez is, and pardon me, not AAA, this is AA, the promotion for Baez. Got a little bit ahead of myself, but Baez is certainly somebody that is getting himself back on the radar if he ever left it. 467 average and over 1,000 OPS in his limited sample so far at AA. We'll kind of gloss over J.J. Weatherholt. Was not his best day, 0 for 5 with a couple of Ks, but that happens. AA, long way to go. He was the starter at second base, and 804 OPS in Springfield for J.J. Weatherholt this season. You feel pretty good about the progress that he has made, but kind of cool to see the Springfield Cardinals tee off on Cole Ragans the way that they did. That's a great opportunity and kind of getting a benchmark for where some of those guys are when you think about potentially working them up toward AAA, up toward the big leagues. Eventually, what does it look like against a big league arm? Always good to monitor that. That, though, is going to do it for this edition of the show. Appreciate you guys, as always, for listening. If you would like to support the independent Cardinals coverage that we do here on B-Schaeff Daily and the Brenden Schaeffer St. Louis Cardinals Writer YouTube channel, consider a channel membership below to support the work. You can check out the link below in the video description. I'll also throw the link in there for the B-Schaeff Daily Discord, which is free to join. and some good Cardinals conversation and a bunch of other sports talk in that Discord channel as well. So the link will be down below. Thank you guys again so much for listening. We appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you next time on b-schaeff Daily. Peace.